First time reacting to a video by Shoma. I just came across this video now on YouTube. I decided to react to it. It's a short video, so should be a short reaction. But just reading this title, they shot him 11 times, months before his death. Just know that that's a sign. Wherever you are, you get shot 11 times. Just know that you need to move from wherever you stay, you, your family, whoever you live with. The people you hold close, you need to move to another city, to another place where you're unknown and where things are safer. Just take that into account.
In November 2019, a man climbed into a car in a quiet residential estate in Lucan, West Dublin, and never climbed back out. Minutes later, the vehicle was on fire. Inside was 42-year-old Wayne Whelan, a man who had spent over 2 decades navigating Dublin's criminal underworld, a man who had survived a shooting just 10 weeks earlier, and who had been warned by Gardaí that his life was in danger. And yet, he trusted the person who lured him there. That trust would cost him his life. This is the story of how Whelan died, who brought him to that car, and the questions that remain unanswered.
Yeah, so before this video even continues further, the fact that he was already shot 11 times means that he's someone who's got a face wherever he's from, wherever he lives, he's getting money, he's already a target. So the fact that they shot him 11 times first, that should have been a sign for him to move, take his family, move to another city for safety. Also, another thing too is no matter who you are, especially if you're in the underworld, there's nobody you can trust. There's certain information that not even your friends need to know, because as it what looks like here that happened, anyone can set you up. The people closest to you generally are the ones that will always set you up. So critical information, a lot of people don't need to know, and nobody, in fact, needs to know.
Wayne Whelan grew up in Rolla, in the western Dublin suburb of Clondalkin. By the mid-1990s, he had become associated with a group that investigators referred to as the M50 Gang, a loose collective of roughly 20 young men operating across the Dublin region. They specialized in stealing high-performance vehicles, using them to carry out robberies across multiple counties, and then abandoning them. The M50 motorway served as their logistical backbone, allowing rapid movement between locations before disappearing back into the suburbs. It wasn't sophisticated organized crime, but it was a training ground. And for Whelan, it was where a criminal career began to take shape. After the M50 gang collapsed, he moved into drug trafficking. Over the following years, his activities expanded into cocaine distribution across West Dublin. Gardaí had long suspected his involvement in serious organized crime, but translating suspicion into prosecution proved difficult. He accumulated relatively few serious convictions.
Yeah, so far from what I've gathered and what you've heard, he was first into grand theft auto, meaning vehicle theft. And then he moved. They said the business collapsed. I don't think it collapsed. I just think he decided to move into allegedly drug dealing. And that was the second business he got into. Most likely the shooting was a result of his drug dealing. But let's continue to watch.
Despite extensive police attention, a pattern that would define much of his criminal life. The closest investigators came to a significant result was in December 2005, when Gardaí raided a cocaine mixing operation in Murnooth, County Kildare. What they found was substantial, approximately 2.5 million euros worth of cocaine and around 100,000 euros in cash. Whelan was arrested as part of the investigation. The case reached its conclusion. The prosecution collapsed due to procedural errors made during earlier court proceedings, and by May 2006, all charges against Whelan had been withdrawn. It became one of the most notable examples of a major narcotics investigation unraveling on a technicality. He walked free, and he kept going. By the mid-2000s, Whelan's name had resurfaced in connection with a series of violent incidents concentrated in the Lucan and Clondalkin area. West Dublin's drug trade had grown significantly more volatile. Criminal alliances were shifting. Feuds that had been simmering for years were beginning to break into open violence. In December 2016, a drug dealer known as Mark Desmond was shot dead in Griffin Valley Park in Lucan. Whelan was questioned by Garda E as part of the investigation, but was never charged. Then, in March 2019, the violence came closer. Whelan's associate...
Yeah, so that's how it generally goes. As I said, he was questioned upon the murder of somebody else. So if that's the type of thing that you're doing, you're getting people assassinated, you're putting hits on people, you're being violent with people, just know that that energy will generally come back to you. So if you're out there allegedly doing these things, you're killing people, you're putting hits, etc., just know that whatever you do, it will come back to you.
David Chen Lynch was shot dead outside his home in Clondalkin. The killing shook the network Whelan moved within and almost certainly recalibrated the threat landscape around him. Following Lynch's murder, Garda E took the unusual step of formally warning Whelan that his own life was in danger. The feuds running through the West Dublin drug trade had reached a point where investigators believed he had become a target. Whelan received that warning. He understood what it meant. And still, what happened next caught him.
These missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints are crazy nice.
Hello.
But the church community that they're going to introduce...
And still, what happened next caught him. On the 4th of September 2019, the first attempt was made. Whelan had spent part of the day visiting his parents, ordinary enough. He was returning to his home in Griffin Glen Park in Lucan when a white Volkswagen Caddy van moved to block his vehicle. A gunman got out and fired 11 shots through Whelan's windscreen. He was struck 4 times. By any reasonable assessment, he should not have survived. But he got out of the car, made it to a nearby house, and collapsed in the hallway while waiting for emergency services to arrive. The attackers set fire to the van. Further vehicles connected to the hit team were later discovered burned in different counties, a deliberate destruction of forensic evidence. But it wasn't enough. Garda E moved quickly. 4 men were arrested: Wayne Ryan, Darren Henderson, Kayleigh Crawford, and Charles McLean. Forensic evidence linked them to the attack. All 4 would later plead guilty in 2021.
So in attempts of this magnitude, what most likely happened that these people must have been tracking him for about at least a week. So they got used to his routine, where he goes to generally, etc., his leaving time, his returning time, and then that's when later they most likely they even knew that he was at his parents' house and that he had just left. I think they didn't want to do what they did at his parents' house, so they waited for him to come out and then they did what they did. So people there, just be aware of whatever you do. As I said, whatever you do, just know what's coming for you.
Wayne Ryan received 15 years. Collectively, the group received 33 years in prison. Whelan had survived. He had seen what was coming for him, and 2 months later, he was dead anyway. On the evening of the 18th of November 2019, Whelan was contacted by a man named Anthony Casserly, described in court as a friend. Casserly invited him out that evening, the pretext being a simple one: watching an international football match.
Yeah, just by looking at this individual, if he is the one who's said to be the friend that found him to watch the football match, just by looking at him and assessing him briefly, I wouldn't trust this person to be a friend. This person just looks like a snitch. He looks weak. He looks like he's capable of doing anything to anybody. So to have someone like this, an individual like this, that close to you, to consider him a friend, etc., is something I wouldn't do.
It was enough. At approximately 7:30 p.m., Whelan got into a Toyota Corolla in Mount Andrew Rise, a residential estate in Lucan. What he didn't know was that an unidentified gunman was already positioned inside the vehicle behind him. At around 7:45 p.m., Whelan was shot multiple times in the head. Shortly afterwards, the car was set on fire. When emergency services arrived, they found a burning vehicle in a quiet residential street. The body inside was unrecognizable. The fire had been severe enough to make immediate visual identification impossible. It was only through DNA, profiling, and dental records that investigators were able to confirm the remains belonged to Whelan.
So regarding the person that set him up, what most likely happened there was that the opposition offered him a bribe of however much. That's one option, and then option two is they could have even pressured him and told him if he doesn't set up his friend, then they come in for him. So one of the two is most likely what happened, but the first reasoning that I gave, the one with the bribe, that's what I think happened.
The investigation moved quickly. Within weeks of the murder, Gardai had begun making arrests. Detectives reconstructed Whelan's final movements using surveillance footage, phone records, forensic analysis, and witness testimony. The picture that emerged was of a carefully coordinated conspiracy. The murder hadn't been improvised, it had been arranged, and the arrangement had involved people Whelan knew. Anthony Casserly, the man who had made the call, extended the invitation, and delivered Whelan to the location, was identified as the individual who had lured him there. He was convicted and sentenced to 9 years imprisonment. Christopher Moran, who served as the getaway driver, received 4.5 years. 2 further individuals were convicted of attempting to obstruct the investigation. Lacey O'Connor had provided a false alibi for Anthony Casserly. Mark Casserly, Anthony's father, had made false statements to Gardai in an attempt to protect his son. Both received suspended sentences. The conspiracy around Wayne Whelan's murder had involved his associates, their family members, and careful planning at multiple stages.
If you send money abroad, you know it can take ages.
Yeah, some providers take forever, but with Wise, most transfers.
And careful planning at multiple stages. As for the 4 men convicted of the September 2019 attempted murder, Wayne Ryan, Darren Henderson, Kaylin Crawford, and Charles McLean, their guilty pleas in 2021 resolved that arm of the case, but their convictions answered a different question to the one that mattered most. Because across all of the proceedings connected to Wayne Whelan's death, one question was never resolved. Who pulled the trigger on the night of November 18th? The identity of the gunman who killed Whelan has never been publicly confirmed. The murder weapon has never been recovered, and the person who ordered the assassination has never been officially identified. Investigators successfully dismantled the supporting structure of the conspiracy: the man who made the call, the driver waiting outside, the witnesses who lied to protect them, but the person at the center of it, the one who was already inside the car when Whelan got in, remains unknown. For Whelan's family, the convictions brought some measure of accountability, but accountability and resolution are not the same thing.
Yeah, so just to address that topic of them asking who's the actual shooter and who actually put the hit on him, because they're saying it's unknown. All they have to do is just spend some time in the streets, ask the people in the streets, the neighborhoods, the people that have influence over the area. The thing is, people talk. People don't like keeping quiet. It's like people almost can't keep quiet. So most of the time, a lot of the time, people do this type of things. They tell a couple of people and then the news spreads. So if a lot of people are generally saying the same thing, then most likely, a lot of the time, it's the truth.
His sister Hazel Granger spoke during the proceedings about what the family had endured. She described the murder as particularly devastating because of the trust that had been weaponized against him. Whelan had known Anthony Casserly. He had accepted the invitation. He had gotten into the car. In the world Whelan had occupied for most of his adult life, that was always the real danger. Not strangers, not people you could identify as enemies, but the person who already had your number in their phone.
Yeah, so as I said earlier on in the video, in this type of lifestyle, and even just in general, nowadays you can't trust anyone with any type of information. You can't even really have friends or anyone close to you, especially for a person like him. He's got a face, he's got cash, etc. Things are going well for him. People are jealous. The people closest to you, as I said before, in general, are the ones that will normally set you up and backdoor you, because they're so exposed to you. They know your movements. They've got so much information from observing you and from what you've told them. In general, they're the ones. The people you least expect, the people close to, the people you trust, The people you'd never suspect to do things like that to you, in general, most of the time, they're the ones that will do those things to you. So, private information, the way you live your life, even who you let close to you and your family, be very careful with all that. Ideal situation, keep away from having extended people around you. Just have the closest people with you, your wife, your children, maybe your parents, and that's more than enough. So yeah, just to add to it, people, this type of lifestyle is not worth it. You were supposedly, allegedly into the streets, caught theft, drug dealing, going to prison, getting shot, and then in the end, what happened to him, rest in peace. There's only two ways, as I've said before, only prison and death with that type of lifestyle. So as much as you can, stay away from it, live a normal life, and stay alive.
The gunman has never been identified. The order has never been traced. And somewhere in that gap between what the courts established and what they couldn't prove, the full truth of what happened on Mount Andrew Rise on the 18th of November 2019 remains unresolved.